That is the size of the tent I will be sleeping in tonight. And this is my pillow. I've brought a pillow that's the same size as the tent. This might just be my craziest story yet about something that seems utterly mundane. A wall. And almost immediately, people started to riot. This is a story that combines conspiracy theories, misinformation, murder, grave robbing, deadly diseases, and a 100-year-old wall that stopped a tidal wave of vomit and diarrhea from destroying a city. And that is only a slight exaggeration. So in this video, we're going to go for a hike. I'm going to tell you the story, and we're going to find somewhere to camp for the night in an extremely tiny tent. So let's go have an adventure. Nailed it! This story starts 50 miles north in Belfast in the 1800s, and the Industrial Revolution was in full swing, and people were flocking to Belfast for jobs in the new spinning mills, the timber industry, the shipyards, and all these new exciting workplaces that had popped up in the city. Belfast was a place of promise and opportunity, but less delightful were the conditions that people ended up living in, because, well, the population of Belfast tripled in the space of 30 years, and there was a housing crisis, and you had more and more people crammed into these packed tenements and alleyways, and all of those people were producing a lot of waste. Now, unfortunately, this was before the development of the modern sewage systems. Every morning, people would wake up and take their steaming bowls of nighttime, lumpy, chocolate, festering bum soup and throw it out into channels in the street outside their house. A literal stream of sewage festering its way past their front door, and that sewage made its way into the local rivers and went out into the sea, and some of it sunk into the ground and made its way into the local groundwater. Hi, sheep. Meanwhile, people were slurping down mugfuls of water taken from rivers and wells that were being slowly contaminated by their own daily leavings. This was not going to end well, and it didn't. By the way, not only am I camping tonight in the smallest tent I own, I'm also carrying everything in this. This is the Exped Skyline 20-litre backpack. I've managed to get every single item I need for a camp into 20 litres. Feeling quite pleased with myself. And this is Exped's new range of sort of tough, durable and flexible backpacks. They come in a range of sizes. Exped have sponsored this video, and I'll talk a little bit about this bag in more detail later. But first of all, let's get back to Belfast and the impending doom. The consequences of slurping down water contaminated with their own nightly bum dribbles started in 1832, and it started with news and rumours from Scotland of a horrible disease, a disease that quickly killed people by causing all the fluids in their body to exit at speed. Death by diarrhea, and it was a terrible, terrible way to go. And about the same time, poor Irish workers who've been overworking in the fields of Scotland returned home to Ireland, and much like Ripley in Alien 3, they brought back an unwanted guest. Dun dun dun! Cholera. Cholera was the word that was whispered in fear in the dark and made people scared of each other who might be carrying the infection. Cholera doctors were put on the case, and almost immediately people started to riot, to protest. Cholera hospitals were attacked. There were even cases of cholera doctors being physically attacked. And the question is, why? Well, the answer lies in a little bit of truth and a little bit of misinformation. You see, doctors had developed a bad reputation after graves had been robbed in Belfast, the corpses shipped over to Scotland and brought to Edinburgh, where they were dissected by medical students. Bodies were in high demand for doctors trying to learn. And people obviously didn't take very kindly to the idea of their granny being dug up and chopped up by wealthy med students. So eventually the graveyards in Belfast actually had to have dogs and armed guards hired to stop people digging up the recently deceased. It got even worse with the notorious case of Burke and Hare. You might have remembered them. Well, they were two Ulster men who, running out of a supply of fresh corpses to dig out of graveyards, they decided, well, let's just murder people. So they started killing poor people that they thought nobody would notice and selling their bodies to the medical schools. Now, I should point out, the medical schools were not aware that all this murdering was going on, but nonetheless, the stories ended up being connected to them. Now, Burke and Hare were eventually caught, and Burke was publicly executed, and then possibly quite aptly, his body was publicly dissected, and his bones, his skeleton, are still on display today in Edinburgh Medical School. It was incidents like these that ended up giving all doctors a bad reputation, and as medicine was something practiced by the rich, and a lot of people were being exploited by the rich at that time, negative associations between rich people and doctors and exploiting the poor and bad intentions started to rise to the surface. Rumours actually started to go around that cholera itself was a disease deliberately spread by doctors in order to kill poor people, either to control the population or just to supply more fresh bodies. So as you might expect, the result of this was people ignored the doctor's advice, cholera spread like wildfire, and people died in their thousands, and it got even worse. Between them in the 19th century, cholera and typhoid killed in Belfast about 5,000 to 8,000 people. And unless something was done, it was only going to get worse. But eventually they made the connection between all the filth they were throwing out on the streets and the water that they were slurping down. The water was contaminated. The water was the source of the disease, of the epidemics. That's where it was coming from. And something had to be done about Belfast water supply because it was ganking. To start with, they started developing proper sewage networks, but the big concern was, where do we get a fresh supply of clean, healthy, pure water that we can bring to Belfast? And they found that water right here in the Mourne Mountains. Fresh, clean, clear, flowing down off the granite slopes. And all they had to do was get it to Belfast. And all I have to do is get out of here because there's 1,000 midges around my face. I may have made a terrible mistake. It seems like every midge and flying ant in existence has popped out of its hiding hole today. I'm getting absolutely plagued with them. I hope there's going to be a little bit more wind later and they leave me alone, otherwise this is going to be a very unpleasant night. But right, getting that water from here to Belfast. So to get the fresh water to Belfast, engineers built this enormous gravity-fed system of tunnels, of aqueducts and of reservoirs. It was known as the Mourne Conduit, and the Mourne Conduit supplied Belfast with fresh water for over 100 years. Sadly, with many success stories, this one came at a cost because it was decided it was necessary to keep that water as pure and clean as possible from the very source, and so any potential cause of contamination needed to be removed, and tragically that meant people or animals. That is a nice boulder. I like that boulder. So any people and their animals who lived within the 4,000 acres of the catchment area, well, they were forced to sell their homes and leave the area, never to return, because from then on, access was restricted, grazing was banned, and it became illegal for any person or any animal to enter that zone. And if you did, you find yourself charged with trespassing and fined. That is just how serious they took the risk of contamination. To prevent this unwanted access by man or beast, they decided to build a wall. This wall, the Mourne Wall, and it is magnificent. Stretching for 22 miles across the mountaintops and encircles the entire water catchment area. This wall was the first line of defence in the battle against the epidemics that were burning through Belfast, and it was built entirely by hand between 1904 and 1922. A massive public health effort disguised as a dry stone wall. This is one of 3 summit huts that were built in the Mournes. They were used for the workers who were building the wall to shelter while they were making it, and you can tell by the door lintel, it says 1921. That's when that one was completed. And as for the wall, well, after it was completed, it was a phenomenal success. Within a couple of years of the clean water coming online for Belfast, cholera, typhoid largely disappeared, and it just transformed the lives of people living in the city. Just a really simple idea: give people clean water and they'll stop getting sick, and it worked. Now you might think this would be an ideal place for me to go and cook, and but it stinks in here. A combination of sheep and people leaving their nightly bum soup in there. I mean, it's absolutely horrible. Oh, and by the way, I have to shut up. The sheep over there. By the way, I have to thank Robbie Marsh from Mourne Mountain Adventures for supplying me with some of the drone footage you just saw. I stuck a little label on. It's Mourne Mountain Adventures, so you know which shots came from Robbie. If you're wanting to get into hiking or camping in the Mournes and you don't know where to start, go and check out Mourne Mountain Adventures. And also I need to thank Ben Too Good as well. Ben is... Shut up! Well, Ben shoots some of the best drone footage I've seen. So if you have a project that requires a drone, why not give Ben Too Good a call? Alright, let me show you this Exped bag in a little bit more detail. Here is some more detail. You can see the front of it. You can see the back. The back has got quite a nice padded ventilation system. It's very, very comfortable on your back. There are optional hip straps that come out. Well, I had them tucked away because I don't really use hip straps in a bag this size, but they are there if you want them. You've got 2 stretchy pockets on each side, and they're really generous with the strap if you have like something big in here. And then there's a big stretchy pocket on the front. I've got a chair in there, I've got an extra bottle of water, and that is secured with a carabiner on the top here. And again, they give you this long roll. I'm actually thinking that I could store a tent potentially on the top of this using, you know, the extra length that you get. One slight downside for me is that it's only got one small pocket in the strap. I quite like strap pockets, but I added a little pouch to the front, and that made up for it. But it's big enough you can stick a mobile phone in it, or some kind of small accessory, or a Mars bar or something like that. And there's other attachment points, so you can put a, you know, a water bladder down in there. The small zip pocket on the top here that you can put, you know, smaller items into. Probably the feature I like the most about this bag is the great big full length zip, or like that. Instant access to all my stuff. And oh yes, here's the good stuff. Sausage roll. I'm absolutely starving. Let me show you how small my tent is. That is the size of the tent I will be sleeping in tonight. And this is my pillow. I've brought a pillow that's the same size as the tent. So go and check out the Exped Skyline range of backpacks, and I've also got, that's an Exped pillow, Exped sleeping bag, and Exped, where is it? And an Exped mat that I'm going to be sleeping on tonight. So yeah, go check them out, and thanks very much to Exped for sponsoring yet another one of my videos. Right, I'm going to eat this sausage roll and set up the tent. No, rubbish, come back.
To set up your tiny tent, unroll it fully on the grass, pick up the corners, add the support pole in the middle, snap everything together, realize you pitched it in the wrong place, move it several times, and eventually you will have one completed tiny tent. And no, this is not an AI generated voice, it's me.
Alright, here is my tiny tent. Let's take a look inside. This is the Van Gogh Neon UL1, and It's not huge inside, but it's got more space than a hoop bivvy. There's no vestibule worth talking about. You can just about squeeze a bag in there. It's cramped. It's hard to pitch, but there's just something about these ridiculously small tents that every now and then I think, you know what, I'm going to go and subject myself to another night in a tiny tent. So we'll see how we get on tonight. This is the first night I've pitched this anywhere that's exposed. So if the weather takes a turn for the worse during the night, I'm toast because it's so thin, the sil nylon that it's made from, I think it's sil nylon, that it's stretchy. It almost feels like a balloon. Like you pull one bit and it stretches somewhere else. So I don't think it'd be very good if the wind ends up windier than forecast. Fingers crossed. The last glimmer of sun has disappeared, and the temperatures drop considerably. There's also something incredibly exciting happening behind me, which I'll show you in just a second. But yeah, that's the story of the Mourne wall, and it's still here today. It's weather beaten, it's been bashed, there's parts of it's been blown over in storms, but when it gets wrecked, some money's put together, rocks are helicoptered in and people repair it. And there's actually some of the people that work on the wall and maintain it today are the descendants of the people who built it originally. So tonight I raise a mug to the man who built the wall. I'm pitching my tent beside it and I'll think of all the long dead hands that built it. And in the morning I'm going to tell you why the wall would never get built today. But first of all, let's go and look at the really exciting thing that's happening behind me. I say really exciting, I think it's really exciting. Look at the clouds. The clouds are flowing through the mountains like a river. Look at that. I don't know about you, but there is something totally magical about standing above the clouds and watching them come in like that. Well, that's me inside the tiny tent, and I've just realised something when I got in here that's really useful. That's the X-Ped bag. Let me pillow it, my giant pillow out of the way. It fits perfectly at the end here, and because it's got the side opening, I can just, where's my stuff? There's your stuff, Stephen. So if that was a bag that only opened in one end or was something like a roll top, I wouldn't be able to do that or get at my stuff. So I'm able to use the bag almost as an organizer for my stuff without having to take my stuff out of the bag. Clever. Less clever is this tent. I don't know if you can see that, but the inside of it is soaked with condensation already. There's like no ventilation in this tent whatsoever. It's such a niche product. Yeah, so the inner is damp there on the sides. Down, there's how much space I have for my legs. Yeah, everything's damp. I'm glad it's not a cold night, otherwise it'd be pretty unpleasant in here. But it's designed for drier conditions. The humidity is obviously quite high up on top of this mountain with those clouds sailing past. So yeah, I'm gonna, what time is it? Oh, it's midnight. I'm gonna try and get some sleep. Sunrise is at 5, which I will not be getting up for. I might, we'll see. I'm not gonna set an alarm, and we'll see what happens. Well, it's 6 a.m. I don't know if you can tell. In fact, you can't tell just how much moisture is in the air. Sunrise never happened, and I don't mean in a nuclear fallout sense. I mean, I think I'm now in a cloud. You can see how much moisture's in the air just inside the tent. Let's go outside and take a look. Oh, look at that condensation. Oh. We're not in a cloud. But I think we must have been.
the sky is clearing. Ugh. Whew. Huh. Now there's a view. What a morning. But going by, see over there, going by the wisps of low-lying cloud, I reckon it got cloudy here during the night and it's just burned off. That is a glorious morning. It's amazing. I always think how you can see the Mourne wall. You won't be able to see here, but in the morning like this, the side of the wall catches the light. I can see it there as it runs up Sleeve Burna over the top. See glimpses of it as it catches the light. I can see the summit huts away over in that direction on Commodore and Donard. So let's answer that question. Why would the Mourne wall never be built today? Oh, tripped on a rock. Oh. Okay, why would the Mourne wall never be built today? And there are 3 reasons for it. The first one is, well, sort of simple. It's environmental, and also kind of combined in with that would be local protest. If you told the locals today that you're gonna build a 22-mile wall through the Mournes and it was gonna take, was it 20 years to complete? And during that time the mountains would be disrupted, and then after that you wouldn't actually be allowed to cross the wall, there would be uproar, absolute uproar. There'd be protests, people would try to get it banned, and also think of the environmental impact of that much rock being brought up here and all the workers and stuff and helicopters flying in, because that's how you would do it now. So it would probably get banned on environmental reasons, or just local people would not want it to happen. Political pressure, I guess. Number 2 then is cost. Can you imagine what this would cost to do? Because we did it today, we would use helicopters. You know, there'd be modern techniques would be used at least to transport the stone up, even if it's still built using the drywall techniques. It would cost, no idea how much it would cost, but it'd be an absolute, it'd be millions. And we've got little enough money in this country for infrastructure projects, so it wouldn't happen. And then the third reason, which honestly is the most compelling reason, is that there's just no need for it anymore. The Mourne wall, in fact, was a giant water filter designed to filter out very large contaminants, being people and animals. Today we now have modern water treatment facilities that do all that work for us. So a Mourne wall, it's simply not needed, and that is why today the wall is not actually used at all for its intended purpose. You will find sheep grazing either sides of it. In fact, in places there's even holes now in the wall where sheep can pass through, and people come and hike and go on the land that previously they were banned from totally freely. So there's just no need for it, and that is why the Mourne wall would never be built today. Now I am hiking off this mountain down a route I've never done before. It's quite a direct, straight route. It might get quite steep and slippy. I'm pretty sure you can go back down this way, pretty sure. But what I'm going to do is, on this channel, this video is going to end now, because I've got a list of questions that people submitted on Instagram, mostly about running, I'll be honest, about trail running and mountain running and that kind of thing. So I'm going to answer those questions as I hike back down, and that video will be over my running channel, Run with Steve. So if you haven't had enough of my ramblings, head on over to Run with Steve after you watch this video and continue the conversation. I'll link them down in the comments. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.